Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King 3. And yes guys, this is it. The final episode, yes. The final episode of What If Naruto Universe had Quirks. Remember to get this one to 100 likes as usual. Share this to all of your friends on your social media platform. And also guys, don't forget to go ahead and check out the other channels if you're new. Yes, I indeed have 5 channels which I post what if on every day for you guys to enjoy. Anime King 2, Anime King 3, and Anime Prince and Anime Symbol. If you want your what if to be done by me, by the way, go ahead and comment over on Anime Symbol and have a chance for it to be done by me, guys. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy each and every one of them, and don't be sad because as you know, new what ifs are coming up soon, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the finale. Let's begin now guys. So, the last part that we left off. The sensation of fear was in the air, as everyone knew that he was coming. The nations had to gather their people. They had to gather their men. All of them arrived. They were surprised when they saw the granddaughter of the Tishikage. From what they heard, she was out of it, but it seems like she was able to pull herself together to attend the meeting, as Minato only brought one guard. It was none other than Kakashi by his side. Killer Bee and Yujito had already been sent to an island, as the 8 tails and the 2 tails would not be taken under the Raikage's command. So they all gathered their forces there, as they started to discuss amongst one another. A lot of heated words were said. However, eventually, they had to understand that if they did not pull their forces together and work hard together to stop this menace, they will all die. So that is exactly what they did. Meanwhile that was going on, Naruto was taken by the masked man. None of them knew where he was taken, so they were kind of freaking out. Mikasa, to be quite exact. That is when the world in front of them twists as Naruto stepped out of the portal. He killed the masked man and Zetsu as well, as Naruto had dived through their mind and found out quite a lot. Zetsu was the most important one. It turns out that Quirks were not original in the world. It was a battle between the Sage of Six Paths and his mother and the 10 Tails. A fluctuation that spread over the entire world after an epic collision. That is where Quirks came from. At the moment, Kaguya was sealed away, as Naruto was even more power hungry to get her power under his control. However, there was something that he was missing to break the seal. He did not know exactly what it was, but there was something that he needed. It wasn't just about the power, because he now was going after the 8 and 2 tails. He whispered something to Mikasa before he disappeared, showing that it was just an illusion of him. A part of him. However, the real one was already on the island. The 8 and 2 tails were working together. The both of them tried their hardest to try and bring him down. The both of them being expert in using their tail beast chakra, but again and again they were both beaten down hard. Naruto did not stop, as he started to show them who was number one, why his power reigned supreme over them. He crushed them under his might. They stood absolutely no chance against him, and he showed them that by crushing them one after the other. It was a bloody, gory battle, and in the end Naruto came out on top. He absorbed the remaining 2 tail beasts as his power fluctuated beyond uncontrollable levels. There was just one more left, with Menma and Mito. Naruto decided to go and pay the Union a visit though. When he arrived there, he was attacked. Naruto severed the right Kage arm and threw him away like it was nothing. He proceeded to beat the living crap out of all of them. Not even Minato teleportation was fast enough to keep up with him. Naruto was just faster. As he gave them a few days, he told them where he would start his, raid from. That was the Valley of the End. He told them to gather all their might, because he was going to crush them with his power. He put the fear of Kami into all of them. Even the Tishikage granddaughter Kurosaki was petrified in fear. After last seeing this man and now seeing him once again, it brought back so many. She was unable to do much in the battle, as Naruto flew away like nothing had just happened after disassembling all of them. Meanwhile, at the Hidden Rain, Konan made her way inside Mikasa's room to see a letter of apology, as she had flew off to go and meet Naruto. She made her way towards the location that he told her when he whispered something in her ear. As she arrived there, he was not there, but there was a cozy little house. It was isolated from the rest of the world. As she waited, he arrived soon after, but he was incredibly angry at everything. As she tried to calm him down, he yelled at her. It was all her fault. It was all supposed to end this way. Once he got rid of everything, once he did what he had to do, he was going to go with it, to finally be at peace. But now, the thought of leaving her, it terrified him. He didn't want to. She held his hand as the both of them talked. She didn't want him to leave either, as once again they shared a kiss, but this one was a lot more passionate. As they made their way inside, some time passed. The union between the nations had been solidified. The forces were being gathered. As they were waiting, the time was clicking down. Minato had a last chance, because he felt like this was going to fail, and they were all going to lose. He had one last, final chance to save his family, everyone, and everything. So he made a move as he unlocked X. We finally got to see the mysterious X as he arrived. X was, he seemed rather normal, but he had 3 of the most dangerous quirks. Once he laid all 5 fingers on an individual, he could literally erase you, destroy you from the inside out. He also had a quirk known as Omnivision, where he could see anyone at any time in the world. That was vastly powerful depending on the way that you use it. And his last quirk was Adapt. His body could adapt to literally anything. So Minato could not place him back in there the same way he did at first. X was an orphan that had developed over time out in the wilderness, robbing and stealing when he came across some Konoha ninja. The ones who made it back alive reported back, as Minato kept him as a secret weapon. Over the years he has done a lot, but his attitude only got worse and worse. Minato had no choice but to lock him up, or risk being killed himself. However, Minato had no choice now. X could already see where Naruto was, so he proceeded to make his way there. He told Minato that when he returns, he wanted something, but he was lying. He was going to kill Minato and his family for what he did to him, locking him away, that is. So yeah guys, basically that's where we left off. You guys can switch across the place and check out the other series for yourself. So what do you say we jump into this final episode? I hope you guys enjoy. Begin now guys. We begin this episode with a very upset Minato. This is not up for discussion, he said, as he was currently yelling at Menma. I am not going to stay behind, Menma yelled back at him. I need to do this. Minato was slowly losing his cool as Menma kept on blabbering about him being on the front line. Minato suddenly shot forward. Minato, Kushina said, as Minato grabbed Menma by the shoulder. Even Mito was afraid, as she saw that look in her father's eyes when her father had came to them, telling them that they would not be on the front line. She had backed down, as she saw a look that she never saw in her father's eyes before. So much fear. And it worried her. He was worried about them. But Menma was not one to stand down that easily. So they were currently fighting. This is the last time I'm going to say it. You have no idea what he's capable of now. He entered a goddamn room filled with Kaguya level shinobis. He was able to demolish everyone inside, including myself. Even with my top speed, he was able to trap my movements with ease. What don't you understand? If you go on the front lines, you will die. And I'm not going to make that happen, so you're going to stay here, Minato yelled at him. However, Menma did not back down as he slapped away his father's hands. I'm not staying here, he yelled. Time and time again I've been humiliated. He took my goddamn hand. I will find and I will be the one that end him. Minato's whole posture seemed to relax as Menma thought that he got through. When Minato drove his fist in his stomach, Menma collapsed as Kushina cursed at him. He wasn't listening, Minato said, turning towards her. This is the only way I see to keep you guys safe. He picked up the unconscious Menma. He turned his gaze towards Mito. Come with me, now. She nodded her head. She was afraid, seeing her father like this. Once they were gone, tears started running down Kushina's face. She's known Minato for a long time and this was the first time she's seen him so anxious. He was terrified, he was afraid. Despite having the entire might under his control, of all the other nations, he was afraid to face Naruto. Minato had been elected as the one to lead all of them. He was the only one that could, given the other situation, and he was the strongest as well. The right Kaguya was taken out of the equation when Naruto had removed one of his arms, and Minato was elected the leader. However, there was so much going through his mind right now. So much that he had to do, as he quickly brought the children to an area that not many people have ever seen. It was deep underground. Kushina was left. As she heard noise, she made her way upstairs. As she arrived inside to see Saya Namikaze awake, the small child was reaching for her mother. She was currently 2 years old. As she was reaching and giggling, it seems like the negativity around did not affect her in the slightest. As she reached out saying mom, however she fumbled her words. Kushina could only smile as she looked down towards her. She will do whatever it takes, even if it means giving up her own life, to make sure that her family lives on. She couldn't afford to lose any one of them. She knew that she was wrong. What she did to Naruto, how she acted, how she treated him. She was a horrible mother. However, they cannot change the past. Only thing she could do now was look to the future. A future that was seeming bleaker and bleaker by the moment passed. She was afraid, of course. She was terrified as she picked up her daughter and hugged her. She hugged her. She just stood there and held her as best as she could. Meanwhile, Minato was deep underground as he walked. Mito was silent behind him. As they weren't alone. Behind them was none other than Danzo as well. Menma was over his shoulder unconscious. As they simply made their way down to the area that they believed the both of them would be kept safe. Minato had to make precautions just in case. X was ridiculously strong. Not to mention with his adapting ability, he was a perfect match for Naruto. And his quirk to erase an individual down to their cells. However, he was still afraid for the future. So just in case, he had to make sure everything goes well. Behind him, Mito was not feeling happy either. She was also terrified. Memories of the past came in her mind when things were actually normal, when Naruto wasn't this much of a threat. But now, he's grown so powerful he was a threat to the entire world. Was there anyone that could actually stop him, she thought to herself. Meanwhile that was going on, Naruto's eyes suddenly opened. Someone was here, he thought to himself. He looked down as an arm was placed over him. Beside him was a sleeping Mikasa. Naruto started to untangle himself. As he got up, he started to put on his clothes. She groaned as she slowly opened her eyes. Where are you going? She said. Stay here, said Naruto. She fully pulled herself up in a sitting position. What's wrong? She asked him. Someone's here. Who? She said. I don't know. But this sensation. Stay here, he said to her. She was looking worried by the look on his face, because she knew all too well that there wasn't anyone that he feared. So why did he have that look on his face? Moments later, Naruto opened the door. Someone was outside, just standing there. As Naruto stepped outside to see the silver hair individual with 3 rings in each of his eyes. Who are you? Naruto asks. The name is X, and I'm happy that we're finally meeting. Naruto Namikaze. It's just Naruto. I've abandoned that part of my life a long time ago. I know. X started to walk. I was sent here by your father to kill you. Let me guess. Another one of his pawns. Puppets. Well, that's where you're wrong, X said. No one can control me. However, in doing his little favor, he's gonna owe me one. And I'm gonna enjoy when he finds out that I'm gonna kill his entire family. In front of him. Naruto gave him a look. What? Does that upset you? X asks. I am the only one that will be taking their life once I'm finished. I suggest you run along before I kill you, said Naruto. Kill me, huh? Said X. Why don't you have a Naruto vanish? He appeared in front of X. An ice dagger formed in his hand as he brought it towards X's throat and sliced. However, the dagger tore through X's flesh, but there was no blood. His flesh turned into gum. Yes, it was like bubblegum. As it slowly stitched itself back together, there was no scar. As Naruto stood in front of him, X was all smiles. Oh, I forgot to tell you, this body of mine adapts to things rather easily. I've been cut and stabbed on numerous occasions, so I don't think that is going to work on me. As Naruto was still standing there, the palm of his hand started to glow as he brought it upwards and released a huge wave of energy that exploded out of the palm. The entire upper half of X was blown apart. Slowly but surely though, his body started to reform, leaving Naruto surprised at the regeneration. Naruto did not allow him to fully reform. He clenched his fist and punched X so hard, he was launched right through a nearby mountain as it broke and collapsed down on him. Mikasa came running outside fully dressed. No, said Naruto. Stay inside, he said to her. What's going on? Who is it? She asked. I don't know. Just stay inside. He bent his knees and leaped. Naruto crashed into the mountainside where X was thrown. The whole mountain top was broke off as X got to his feet. Oh, did I mention that I'm strong as well? And also, X vanished and appeared behind Naruto. Really fast, he whispered. X brought his hand up and placed it on Naruto's arm, left arm to be quite exact. However, Naruto turned his arm into sand. He then jumped away. X was still smiling, as Naruto thought he would have done something. Wondering what I did, huh? Why don't you take a look at your hand, X said. Naruto's hand had returned back to normal, yet it started to crack and spread. What is this? Naruto said. Just a little quirk of mine, X said. And also, it also works on other people's quirks. So if you think you can avoid being touched by me, you're sadly mistaken. Naruto turned his arm into a blade and sliced his left arm off. It collapsed down to the ground as it turned into stone and broke away. There was not even dust remaining. Immediately, his arm regrew. Flesh and bone coming back together, nerve endings. Quite a fast regeneration user, are you? X said. However, I grew up in a really horrible, terrible environment where I was treated like garbage because I was alone. I had no one, no parents, nothing at all. I had to learn how to defend for myself. I had to steal, and when I get caught, they would beat me so badly. And my body adapted time and time again. So it doesn't matter what you do to me. I cannot be killed, X said. However, you on the other hand, you're powerful but not unkillable. And that is what I'm going to do today. As Naruto looked at him, I've gone through too much crap to be killed by someone that is named X. This is just another tribulation in my path to end everything as I see fit. And I'll give you a promise. Today, you will learn that nothing is unkillable. Not even you, said Naruto. X smiled at that. I don't know why, but my body is itching for me to kill you for some reason. And I'm going to listen to it, he said. The groan broke as he shot off. Naruto also moved as well. When they clashed, X realized that Naruto was covering his arms with water. If it wasn't water, it was lava. And if it wasn't lava, it was electricity. So that he could not get a grasp on his flesh. X was destroying every quirk that Naruto used. However, Naruto would simply push it back out once again. After he destroyed it, Naruto pushed it back out once again. However, X was not lying about his strength. Naruto was sent through a mountainside. X came down like a rocket. However, Naruto's feet slammed him under the chin. He was blasted in the heavens. Naruto slammed his hand down. Thousands of spikes rushed up into the sky. They were made from ice. X landed right on top of them. However, his body had opened up. Yes, there were holes all over him. Even one through his head. It was almost like he had no organs to be destroyed. Naruto has never seen anything like this before. This was different. To believe that Minato had someone like this under his control. As Naruto landed once again. So, is that it? Is that all you have to offer? Are you the most dangerous that he has? I must say, I'm not impressed. X started to laugh. It turned into a full-blown laughter as he even pulled his head back and laughed to the heavens. Naruto stood there, watching him. That is when X seemed to just dematerialize. Naruto turned. As once again his arm was being decayed, he leaped away. He removed it as it regrew. X was now standing behind him when he landed. Naruto flashed away. X was behind him once again. Naruto was up in the sky. X was behind him. Naruto landed. X was behind him. As Naruto finally got away. What can I say? I love to hold back at first just to see how powerful my opponent is. And I have to say, you're really powerful. But this feeling inside, it doesn't want me to just kill you. It wants me to make you suffer. And I must say, I know the perfect way to do that. X then shoot off at blinding speed as Naruto's eyes tracked to where he was going. Meanwhile, over to the other side, Mikasa was still on the secluded mountainside. She looked around as she was hearing chaos all over. That is when she heard someone yelling at her. "You're mine," he yelled out. As she turned her gaze to see someone coming down towards her at speeds that was far faster than anything she's ever gone at. And he was intent on touching her. His hand was outstretched, his 5 fingers to lay on her skin. However, an eruption of power went off the next moment. X's hand touched the ground because Mikasa was long gone. Standing in mid-air was Naruto, covered in a golden aura. Mikasa was resting perfectly, bridal style within his arms. She turned her gaze towards him as she saw the pure and raw hate in his eyes. Suddenly, a shimmer came out of Naruto's body. A direct copy of him as he handed Mikasa over. "Go, now." She could not get a word in, as the shimmer blasted off at blinding speed. X went after only for a fist to slam in his face. His entire face was crushed under the force. He slammed into the house, breaking through it as he crashed into the mountain, obliterating it. Naruto did not stop as fire appeared in both of his hands. He then proceeded to rain it down. It was like hell on earth, burning the entire civilization out here. He wasn't done as he held his hand up to the heavens. A small purple ball started to form, golden aura surrounding it. It grew larger and larger until Naruto launched it down below. The entire place was turned to cinders. Everything was burnt and destroyed. All the mountains around was completely obliterated by the blast. Naruto stood there unfazed, pure unnatural hate resonating from him. He then slowly lowered himself down to the ground. As he did, walking out of the smoke was a skeleton. Yes, a skeleton. No flesh, nothing. That was until the flesh started to regrow, reviving his silver hair and his ring eyes. X had a smile on his face. Wow, I can tell that you really love her, X said. She must be super special to you, for you to do all of this. I mean, look at the place. You obliterated everything. He was cut off as Naruto's fist grind in his face, blowing his head off. Naruto grabbed him by the shoulders and lifted him before he threw him up in the air. That is when X's head regrew to see another Naruto in mid-air, holding a sun in his hand, a miniature sun, as he launched it towards him. The fire was so hot, X's bones started to melt the moment it was close enough. As he was hit by it, the whole place was plundered into nothingness. No one could ever rebuild on this land. The soil was destroyed. The crater was so large that you could not see the bottom from where you are. As Naruto could not see it as he was in mid-air, the other Naruto fused back into his body. As he stood there, looking down, hate and anger still in his eyes. He would never, ever lose someone again. He had the power now to protect the ones that he loved. That is when X came flying up in the sky. It seems, once again I adapt to be your better, X said as he was floating there now, as Naruto sent him a glare. It doesn't matter what you do to me. Can't you get it? I can't die. Can't you see? There is no way possible that you can do this forever. So eventually, I'm gonna hunt her down and kill her. And then, I'm gonna kill you as well, X said. So why not just surrender now? Naruto did not listen though as he flew forward, so did X. They clashed. Their battle was tearing everything apart, further completely demolishing everything. As Naruto knocked X into an entire forest a far distance away, the forest was turned to cinders when Naruto hit it with a blast. The sky opened up as thunder came from the heavens, thunder and lightning. It boomed and crashed. A massive stone was formed into the heavens on key Quirk as Naruto dropped it on X like a meteor. Everything was being destroyed and obliterated. Their battle was actually shaking everything around them. The two beings clashed against each other. The more Naruto amped up himself, the stronger X seemed to get. His body was growing in strength to match Naruto's. Something was not right here. The more Naruto fought, the more he felt it. That is when they finally came to a stop. X just regrew the left side of his body. As for Naruto, he was unharmed. There was nothing wrong with him. That is when he started to walk. X was confused. So, are we taking a slow pace now, he said, as the both of them got in close. X looked at Naruto, amusement in his eyes. That is when Naruto reached and grabbed both of his hands. X was surprised. Oh, so you want to die? Well then, let me kill you, X said. As several cracks started to appear over Naruto's body. He was not speaking in the slightest. However, something strange happened. X could not make Naruto explode into dust and erase him, despite the thousands of cracks over him. What is this? How are you still going? X said. I can't believe it, said Naruto. How did it take me this long to see it? What are you talking about? X said. This was the first time his ability was not working, so he was confused. As Naruto started to laugh, before he calmed down. You're not human, he said. What? X said to him. Let me ask you something. You have no memories of when you were young, am I right? X narrowed his gaze. The furthest he could go back to was when he was 6 years old. Nothing beyond that, but that was normal for any kid, right? Yes, for some, said Naruto, as he could hear X's thoughts by making contact with his hands. But you, on the other hand, you're not normal. You see, recently I found out something about this world entirely. A creature known as Black Zetsu was manipulating things from the shadow. His mother was a woman known as Kaguya Osusuki. I was confused because I had the power. I have all of the tail beasts except for the 9 tails. But you see, my power is something special. My ability to steal other quirks. I have grown so much stronger, and yet I cannot find the link that is missing. How it is all connected. And now I realize you're that link. X tried to make Naruto release him, but he could not. What the hell are you talking about? I'm not a link. I'm a human. I'm just a very powerful one. Better than you. Oh, I see now, you're jealous. So you're making up bullshit. No, said Naruto. You can't die because you're the link. Why do you think your body wants me dead? Because if you kill me, upon my death, all the power inside of me would be used to set her free, and the excess power would be funneled into her, for her to reclaim this world as she wants and take back all the chakra. Now it all makes sense. Everything, quirks, they came from the Jubi fighting the sage. It was a strange toxic chakra that does not belong on this planet. It evolved and mutated the humans, giving them what we currently call quirks. Even if I had bring back the Jubi, it wouldn't have been complete because I needed you, said Naruto. You're the part of the beast that is able to connect everything together. You're what I needed all this time. I can't believe it took me so long, said Naruto. X started to see black markings coming on his hand. He slammed his head into Naruto, but Naruto did not budge. It doesn't matter what you do. Now that I know this, it's over. No. I won't let you erase me, said X. I refuse. He kept on slamming his head into Naruto over and over. He tried to tear his own arm off, but it was not working. The black marking spread to his arm and wrapped around him. He screamed out to the heavens as he was pulled inside of Naruto's body. That is when it connected. X did not have a pass because in the battle between Kaguya and the Sage of Sixth Path, which was her son, and the Jubi, the connection was made. That wave that spread over the world that gave people quirk, it also spat something else out. An imprint on the world. 4 centuries it just lay there. It wasn't anything special. However, it was what retained everything. It was what was causing the mutation and the ever-growing populace of quirks. 80% of the world developed quirks because of it. That link was a connection between all 3 of them. Kaguya, her son, and the Jubi. And that is what was missing. That is what Naruto needed. Naruto found himself floating in a white empty plane. It was completely empty. Nothing around. However, when he started to pull himself up, the place started to gain shape and form. He saw a coffin. It was currently placed right in the center of an altar. There were chains holding it in place. It was just stuck there. Naruto floated downwards as he proceeded to grab on to the chains. They burned his skin. They tried to make him let go, but he did not. He tore it off. He then pried the lid open. It hit the ground with a boom, shaking the very fabric of everything inside of this space. That is when the aspectual form of the sage appeared behind Naruto. There was no words that was coming from him. It was just his eyes that were looking at Naruto. The next moment, he was gone. As Naruto, when he had pulled off the lid, a wave of energy had washed over the world. The Sage of Sixth Path reappeared, as he was now in the human world. He was not alive, of course. He was anchored here by the chakra that was now released. The chakra of his mother. And the link. It brought him here. It gave him a physical form. He could not fight, but he could help. He was the only one that understood the true danger that was coming for mankind. This boy had no idea what he was doing. He could not control that power. His mother would take control of that boy and use him to finish what she started. That is why he had to do this. Meanwhile, that was going on. Let me out of here! Menma banged on the steel door over and over again. Despite the seals that were placed on his body, he banged on the door over and over again. He turned his gaze towards the other occupant in the room. Do something, he yelled at her. She did not have seals on her that restrained her ability, because she was actually listening, unlike him. No, she said. Damn it, Mito, do something. It's the only way for me to end this. End what? She said. Do you really think that you can fight Naruto and defeat him by yourself? Of course I can. Then you're more stupid than you look, she said. What? You heard me. Father said that he defeated a room filled with Kages by himself. What part of that you don't understand? Yes, Menma, you're strong. Yes, you have the power of the Nine Tails, but still, he's much more. You saw what he did to the Hidden Stone. He destroyed everything by himself. Do you really think that you can fight everyone in a village and still come out on top? And now, he has all the tail beasts, except for the ones that are in us. There is no way I'm going to let you go and get yourself killed. So, as I said, no. Menma was about to say something until... Enough. The both of them turned as they saw a ghostly figure standing there. They raised their eyebrow in surprise and confusion. Who are you? Said Mito. I am perhaps the only one that will be able to save this world now, he said, as they both looked at him. Meanwhile, that was going on. As Naruto looked down into the coffin, there she was, sleeping peacefully. As her eyes were closed, the mother of all. Naruto rested both hands on her. The sky started to tear apart. The ground started to give in. The heavens quaked. The violent gust tore through the entire place, turning it into pure chaos. As Naruto started to grit his teeth, he started to be sucked inside. He started to be pulled inside as he was yanked. Meanwhile, Mikasa was trying to get the copy of Naruto to explain to her what was going on. However, he was only giving her vague answers when suddenly he vanished. She started to fall until she extended wings from her back. What the hell? She then looked ahead as she saw a great burst of chakra traveling through the sky. She flew at top speed towards it. The wave slammed into her as she staggered back. But she flew and flew and flew. She was there. She landed as the place was no longer a forest. It was just a wasteland. That is when she saw Naruto. His eyes were closed, but he was covered by a gigantic dome of chakra that was going all the way up in the heavens. It was slowly coming down, like there was going to be something at the end of it. Naruto! Naruto, she yelled! Answer me! However, he would not speak to her, nor did he acknowledge her. That is when she noticed his body started to change. Half of his face was different. What the hell? That is when one of the eyes opened up to show a Byakugan. Soon, I will take full control. Even his voice was completely different. Who are you? Said Mikasa, knowing that that was not Naruto. I am Kaguya Ususuke, the mother of all, she said. Your little Naruto made a fateful mistake. Even now I can see everything that he's been through. Everything that has led him up to this point. It was all to bring me back. I knew that I had to make a second option of revival. Zetsu was always my first go. However, I had to make a second. I was the one that allowed the link to remain on this plane of existence. I know that soon enough, there will be a child that will be born to steal all others' quirk. It was all written that way from the beginning. I saw it upon my seal and demise. I knew everything. I just had to wait until that moment. It didn't matter how long it took. I knew that he would get power hungry and crave the power of the Jubi. However, I will be the one to retake control once he does. He has already possessed a significant amount of power, so he does not need all the pieces of the Jubi. All he needed was a link, and now that he has it, I am the one in control. Her face started to take over. No, she said. I won't let you, Mikasa said as she turned her arm into a cannon. She blasted it. However, it simply absorbed the chakra. She tried to use her paper. She used every quirk at her disposal, but they all failed. Foolish child. You don't seem to understand who, exactly what I am, and how powerful I am. My plan is right in front of me, and there is nothing in this world that will be able to stop me now. It is over. As a strange white cloak started to appear, Mikasa was cursing as she was running low on chakra. She released almost every ounce. However, this thing simply absorbed her chakra. Naruto, she said, you can't give up. Please, don't give up. Remember. Remember, she yelled to him. Meanwhile, this is a big day, Kyo said as he patted Naruto on the shoulder. Yeah, said Naruto, as he fixed his suit. All around him was tons of people. They were all gathered in cheers. It was wonderful, he thought to himself, as he saw his mom, his dad, his loving brother and sister, and his little sister. It was a wonderful day. That is when she came, walking down the aisle. It was Ami. They were getting married. Everything in his life had been perfect. He was born with his parents' quirk, grew up in a lovely, wonderful home. His mother and father was very happy when he had met Ami and they got together. They were all supportive. His best friend Kei was always by his side. Naruto was just happy. Everything in his life was perfect, and now he was watching her walk down the aisle. She was immaculate. Remember! Naruto looked around. Hey, what's wrong? Said Kei. It's... Remember who you are! Don't you hear that? Said Naruto. Kei shook his head in the negative. Naruto, remember who you are! He heard the voice. That is when Ami face became so pale, almost like she was dead. He then turned to see Kei eyes closed, and he was dead. He looked around. What? Everything returned back to normal. As Ami smiled at him. Are you okay? She asked. Yeah, I'm fine, said Naruto. His father was the officiant for the wedding. As he started to speak, Naruto felt an odd sensation, but he pushed through it. as he said his vows. So did she. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. As Naruto leaned in, Ami leaned in as well. The closer they got, the more stuck he felt. As Naruto was about to kiss her until a red-haired individual was popping into his vision. Her smiling at him, her holding him. As he told her everything that makes him feel so useless. Naruto stepped back. What's wrong? Ami said. What are you doing? Son, said Minato. Naruto slapped away his hand. Son, Kushina rushed over. Stay where you are, said Naruto. What is this? He looked around as a memory started to flood in. His life, all that he's lost. What is this? Hey buddy, calm down. People started to tell him to calm down. Naruto, calm down, Seikyo. We can sort this out. No, Naruto yelled. His power started to flare up around him. This is not real. You died. Both of you died and I miss you so much, but you're dead now. None of this is real. None of this. His power exploded out, erasing all of them. That is when Naruto saw a podium of himself as Kaguya was fusing into his flesh. No. The ground cracked as he shot off. Meanwhile, in the real world, Mikasa was crying as she was almost fully completed. The woman had taken 95% of his body and she was about to completely take over. That is when his hand stuck out as it was reaching out to Mikasa. Suddenly, Kaguya started to frown. What is this? She could not move. Her feet stepped forward. Stop, she said, commanding herself. I said stop! But it did not work though. As the hand went through the chakra veil, Mikasa reached out as she grabbed it. A wave seemed to spread from the touch. Kaguya started to scream and curse, but it did not matter how much she cursed and screamed. Her body was slowly being sucked inside until a bright light. Mikasa had to close her eyes. The next moment, she found herself picked up off the ground. They were in mid-air. She slowly fluttered open her eyes. Looking down at her was Naruto. His eyes were red, both of them, with several circles inside of it. It was similar to her father's, but his were red. He had 2 horns in his hair. He was wearing a strange white suit that fluttered out, and black pants. He wasn't wearing anything on his feet. There was a staff floating behind him as he looked at her, the smile on his face. She did not waste any time as she landed her lips on his. He was back. He was back. The tears pooled out in nothing but passion and love as he kissed her as strongly as well. They just stood there in mid-air, holding each other. Time skip. Nagato stood on his building as he was looking down. His daughter had left. They had no idea where she was. He knew that she was with Naruto, but some time ago he felt vibrations through the air. Because of his Rinnegan, he could see it full well. An obscene amount of power was being released, and then it just vanished like it was never there to begin with. And he believed that she's wrapped up in all of this. Hearing footsteps, he turned as Konan walked up towards him. She was looking worried. However, Nagato did not seem worried at all. Before they could say anything though, Nagato turned his gaze. Standing in mid-air was Naruto, with his daughter in his hands. He lowered himself toward the terrace and placed her down. Her mother immediately hugged her. She was worried about her. As Naruto was looking at Nagato, Nagato was surprised by his changes. Come, said Naruto. Let's talk. Time skip. I'm sorry, Mom, said Mikasa, but I had to do this. Konan released a breath. She had been babying her for some time now, but she was all grown. Grown enough to make her own decisions. And she was safe. Not to mention she was incredibly happy. He shared everything with me. I think Dad will approve, she said. What do you mean? Conan asked. She turned towards her mother with a smile, as Conan was curious what she was talking about. Time skip. Nagato was by himself. After his conversation with Naruto, there was no longer any need for the organization known as the Akatsuki because they both wanted the same thing now. Things were different. Nagato knew that he could not fight Naruto at the level that he was. He was just not strong enough. However, things were different. There will be a purge, just like what Nagato wanted. To use the power to show the other nations that the war was something that would cost them. But he could not change Naruto's mind. He was dead set on his goals. However, when Nagato looked at things, in the big picture he knew that it was the right thing to do. And now, he was saying goodbye. She had a sad look on her face. She was still worried despite everything, despite his huge growth in power. As Naruto laid a gentle kiss on her lips, which she reciprocated. Before she could say something, he spoke. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, he said to her. I want you to marry me. She was surprised, not expecting that in the slightest. He placed a finger at her lips. Don't answer now. Answer once I return, said Naruto. Then, I will take your answer. In that moment, where I was about to be consumed by that woman, I did not fear death in the slightest. What I truly feared was losing you. And I don't want to lose you, said Naruto as she leaned forward and kissed him. They held each other for the longest time. It seems like hours, but it was truly minutes. Answer me when I return, he said to her. She nodded. She understood what he had to do. Yes, she understood. She felt it, she saw it. With that, he slowly took off. Saying his final goodbyes, he flew off. Misaka felt a hand on her shoulder as it was her mother. He'll return, said Conan. She did not doubt that in the slightest. This is what has to be done in order for this world not to fall into genocide ever again. Time skip. The day was finally here. There were a line of forces gathered. All of them were wearing one headband that said shinobis, uchihas, hyugas, all sorts of ninjas. From all nations, samurais, Rhine ninjas, everyone was there. There were several platoons set in different spots to stop his pursuit forward. A lot has changed in the past couple of days. It shows, given the fact that both Mito and Menma were on the battlefield. Minato was frightened when he actually saw it. Flashback. There was a huge tremor that went through the village. Minato rushed down towards the location, fearing that Naruto had arrived and taken the both of them. However, when he got there, Menma and Mito were different. They were glistening with the unknown power. Mito had a sun in her hand, and Menma had a moon. The both of them were covered by a golden cloak, with several Megatama markings on it. The sage had spoken to the separate parts of the Nine Tails. This had to be done in order to protect everything. The Nine Tails agreed with his father. Kurama would not let him down. Despite not liking these humans, they had to work together in order to stop the bigger threat. Who are you? Said Minato, as the sage stepped forward. In the flashback, that is where he learned everything. And now, both of his children were on the battlefield. He had spoken to the other leaders. They were all gathered. Kurosaki, Raza, Mei, the one-armed Raikage, and Minato himself. They were all in different squadrons. to protect their people and fight with them as well. Mei was with the large group of Kira ninjas. This is a battle that they had to give their all, otherwise they will all die. It was now daybreak. The sun started to rise. As it was rising, a figure could be seen, rising along with it. He descended like a benevolent god. Minma clenched his fist as Mito looked towards him. She raised her fist for a fist bump. Let's fight until the end. She was afraid to fight, but now she had to. And she was going to give it all that she had. As she thought about her mother and her baby sister, she shook her head as she focused on the fight. As Naruto was standing there, his gaze could see everyone, 80,000 in all. That is when the Sage of Six Paths descended towards him. I'm surprised, he said. You were able to break my mother's will and take control of her power. Naruto glanced towards him. Yes, that's right, Hagoromo, he said. I see that you've interfered. As he looked towards Menma and Mito. What you're doing is not right. I can see it in your eyes. You're going to cast mass genocide. Huh. You think the world is better, said Naruto. The sage was about to open his mouth. Well, don't bother, I don't give a damn what you say. The world was already garbage. I'm just gonna clean it up. So, leave! Naruto yelled as a wave blew the sage away. Despite his form not being physical, the sage was surprised by that. People of the elemental nations, Naruto yelled. You 5 nations have always ruled. Now that there's a bigger threat, you've joined forces to believe that there's a chance you can take this threat down. But let me tell you, there isn't. Countless of you will perish today. I hope the rest of you understand. If you survive this battle, the changes that will be made, all of your leaders will die today. I'm giving you all one chance. Those who do not wish to take part in this event, run home to your family and friends. At least then you can see another day. Otherwise, you will die, he said. However, none of them moved. As Naruto started to walk forward, he's coming. Upon saying that, thousands of arrows were fired towards Naruto. Naruto stood there. The arrows bounced off his skin. However, all of them had strange explosives on them. The whole valley was lit up in a bright explosion that swallowed it, sacrificing the statues of Madara and Hachirama. They were gone, erased. However, Naruto was walking out of that smoke. There was a green shield that was powered by his chakra that surrounded his body. As he kept on walking, the ninjas started to sweat, some of them praying, some of them holding crosses, crucifix. They were praying to whatever god that they serve. As Naruto kept on walking, several people holding on to strange beads, whispering words, as they knew they could see him coming. First company, attack! A horde of ninjas rushed forward. Attacks, long-range attacks were thrown. However, as Naruto saw all of them coming, he just kept on walking. He proceeded to open his mouth. A large amount of power started to gather in front of his face. He then released it. What followed was a tsunami of pure chaos. Bodies were mutilated and destroyed, reduced to nothingness. Mei Terumi was amongst the first company. Half of her ninjas died in a matter of a few seconds. She was petrified. She leaped up high as she launched several attacks forward from her quirk. However, she felt something behind her as she was falling. She turned as Naruto was standing there. She tried to hit him, but He simply phased right through her and placed his hand on her chest. Her chest started to glow and grow in size. Boom! What fell was her legs. The rest of her body blown to sunders. Everyone was shocked at that display. Several ninjas threw themselves into oncoming collision to take him down. As Naruto was running through them, one after another, heads were being broke off, limbs were being torn off, bodies were being skewered. They felt a cold chill run down their spine. 90% of the first company was frozen before they shattered like glass. And Naruto kept on walking. Fear started to course through everyone there. Kurosaki ran forward. She did not care anymore. She would take him down with her. She fired at least 1,000 arrows per second, using up a ridiculous amount of her chakra. As she rushed forward, she tried to meet him in combat, but she phased right through him. He turned and kicked her in the face. Her head snapped to the side. She staggered back. She heard something whisper in her ear. "You should have remained at your home." Suddenly, her entire body was cleaved in half by his staff that tore through her. That was the last thing she saw, his face. The earth ninjas sunk the ground as Naruto was sent sailing down below, the soil grabbing onto him, the earth to be quite exact. Several of them jumped forward to solidify the ground. That was until a fireball as huge as the hidden leaf came out. Bodies were turned into ash instantly as Naruto came outside, floating. They forgot. It seems they forgot that he could fly. Several of them tried to use their telekinesis quirk on him, but they could not move him. Several tried to invade his mind, but their minds were destroyed. Countless ninjas. Over 20,000 ninja was already killed. Some were running away in fear, as they were heeding his warning despite their loyalty. Minato, the Raikage, shot forward. Minato did not stop him. Erasure was coming from the other side with a massive wave of sand to try and bury Naruto. However, Erasure felt the sand. It lost its pull on it. Just like last time as he pushed his chakra to the limit, only for the sand to slam into him. His bones were being crushed and grind. Temari and Kankuro leaned forward. However, Naruto's hand turned large, larger than the tail beasts, and smashed down on them and 1,000 others. As it returned back to normal size, thousands of creatures made from wood started to erupt out of the earth. It started to feast and tear at their flesh like zombies. Massive plants and trees started to rise up, attacking everyone around. Strange goblins made from water start to attack. Fire monsters, earth, water. Lightning monsters. As Naruto walked, screams of death and chaos could be heard. Naruto held his hand up to the sky. The ear started to twist, time and space itself started to bend as Naruto was ripping through the fabric of time. He was gathering so much power in the brink of his hands, to the point where he started to sink. It turned into a tiny ball, which he clenched before he threw it. Everyone tried to flee. 10,000 ninjas were erased in the attack. Everyone separated. The place was now wild and chaotic, as Naruto kept on firing blasts all over the place. Massive pits of lava rose up. A gigantic beast made from lava started to burn everything. The Raikage was going full force. He was aiming to rip right through Naruto, but Naruto ran into him. When they collided, the Raikage was sent sailing, as Naruto appeared in front of him and gripped into him by his own flesh. stopping his flight. He then grabbed the man by the face. You don't learn, do you? He proceeded to sink his head into the ground. Naruto did not stop until he was deep underground. His hand was covered in mush and blood. The skull of the Raikage had been destroyed in the attack. Naruto picked his body up. Lightning started to course through his body as Naruto swinged him like some kind of gig, slicing and burning ninjas apart. That is when he felt a huge amount of energy as he turned to see two Nine Tails. The both of them fired the Bijou bomb towards him. It slammed into Naruto, sending him sailing. As Menma and Mito went after him, the remainder of the rookies also went after him as well, as Minato and the others had to stay behind to fight the monsters. Half of their population had already been killed, and more was being slaughtered. Naruto found himself on the end of the Bijou bomb. He proceeded to absorb it and swallow all that power. That is when he found himself surrounded. Hinata, Kiba, all of them were there. Lee, all of them. Naruto held his staff up. He plunged it down into the earth. They all tried to jump away. However, copies of Naruto appeared behind all of them. Hinata felt her back slammed against one of them. Menma and Mito rushed forward, both of them covered in a golden cloak. They shot chains outwards, but time itself seemed to slow down. I warned you, said Naruto, that I would kill you. Hinata opened her mouth, but it was too late, as Naruto tore her in half. Not just her, the others as well. None of them were spared from his wrath. They were nowhere close to his power. As all of the copies came back to the original, Menma and Mito chains wrapped around him as they dragged him forward. They tried to place their other hand on him to seal him, but Naruto stopped as they tried to pull the chains, but instead he pulled the both of them. He then drove his fist forward, but they blocked it with their arms. Despite the cloak, they felt the stinging sensation. An arm came out of the cloak and grabbed Naruto and threw him away. Both Menma and Mito jumped up in the sky before they appeared behind him. Both of them created a fist covered in pure chakra as they drive it forward. However, he extended his hand and blocked the both of them. One of the survivors, Sasuke Uchiha, saw his opening as he pumped every ounce of explosive in the attack. However, Naruto looked at him and released a breath, which turned into a gale that sent the Uchiha flying. Sasuke slammed through several trees before coming to a stop. As he was lying on his back in pain, the trees were alive. They started tearing into his flesh and rip him apart as he screamed. Well, said Naruto, as he was still holding back both his brother and sister with his hands. His voice was filled with amusement. It seems you guys had no idea, huh? No idea about what, said Menma? That you're gonna die today? No. About what I currently am, Naruto asked. He then jumped away. You see, even before, I was already strong, but with this new boost and the tail pieces, I doubt I'm even human anymore, said Naruto. That is when he threw the Shakijo to the side. He took off the cloak. However, I want to kill you too with my fists. He cracked his neck as a golden aura surrounded him. At the moment, I'm currently at 100%. My quirk, it's at maximum. And I'm going to use my fist on you both. Are you ready? He asked. I was born for this, Menma said. And I'll take you down today. We won't let you hurt our family, said Mito. We'll kill you. Yes, your family. However, I'm telling you this. By the end of this day, you will all be dead. They shot forward, all three of them, as they engaged in pure fist brawl. Naruto was right. He did not use any of his godly abilities on them. He just used his fists. They used the full force of Kurama behind their punches, but even with that, even with using Tail Beast Bomb and everything that they had, teleporting and vanishing, chains, they could not get the upper hand on him. They could still hear their friends and comrades dying, and what they just witnessed was pure chaos. Menma was sent sailing as he coughed up blood. As Naruto appeared in front of him, his hand slammed into Menma's gut, almost rearranging his organs. The ground exploded as Menma coughed up so much blood, losing his cloak. Mito rushed forward, a Rasengan in her hand. Well, a mini Bichu bomb, but the way she held it like a Rasengan. She slammed it into Naruto's face. However, he devoured it whole. The power was swallowed into his system as he grabbed both of her hands and slammed his skull into hers. She stepped back as he kicked her in the stomach. She crashed on the ground, losing her cloak as well. The both of them were cursing at Kurama to give them more power, but the fox needed time. The both of them were struggling to get back up. Menma teleported behind Naruto as Naruto spun and sliced, cutting Menma's arm off clean. And this was his good hand. Naruto had sliced through it with his own hand. Menma screamed out as Naruto grabbed him by the face and sunk both fingers into his eye sockets. Menma screamed as he tried to fight it off, but it was no use as Naruto crushed both of his eyes. Menma dropped to the ground with his one robotic hand. Mito started to teleport all over in order to not make him get her. However, everywhere she went, Naruto was behind her. His speed was far superior to hers, even though she was teleporting as she could see. She was afraid, terrified. Now she knew how far out of his league they were, as Menma was still screaming she teleport a far distance away, only for her to feel something in her stomach. Naruto's fist had burst through her back. Mito coughed up blood as she collapsed. Naruto kicked her in the face as she collapsed down to the ground. He looked towards the both of them. "Rasengan!" said Minato as he arrived. The Rasengan slammed into Naruto's face, yet he did not move as it exploded. He grabbed Minato by the throat. Minato tried to teleport, but he could not. What is this?" he said. Naruto slammed him into the ground as Naruto punched his fist into his face. He did not stop until Minato was out cold. He wouldn't kill him just yet. Naruto extended both of his hands as tentacles wrapped around Mito, Menma, and Minato. They were all pulled away in a vortex. Naruto flew straight up in the sky. Looking down, he saw several people fighting down below. That is when Guy appeared behind him. His body was all red. Naruto was hit by raw force from his punch, as Naruto was sent spiraling down towards the ground. Kakashi leaped forward, using every ounce of electricity that he had, even willing to sacrifice his life. However, when his contact made with Naruto, all it did was backfired and hit back into the copy ninja. He screamed to how this was happening as the electricity turned white, far superior to his. The next moment, his body was burned out as Guy came crashing down. Naruto caught his fists and pulled him in and slammed several fists into his chest until he was on his knees. Naruto did not stop as he kept beating the living crap out of Guy until his fists were bloody. Even in the 8 gates, Naruto was far above him in strength and everything else. None of them stood a chance. Naruto started to push his hand together like he was trying to squash the air between them. He then suddenly roared, releasing every ounce of power that was contained in his hands. Several ninjas that were close by were reduced to nothing. Their bodies were just gone. Guy was one of them as well. 80% of the battlefield had been killed, leaving behind the remaining numbers. Many of them started to understand how screwed they were. However, all the creatures suddenly stopped fighting. As Naruto started to walk, none of them dared attack him. They were too afraid, petrified. as the creatures all walk with him. Everyone was just stunned. They lost. Even with 80,000 plus, they lost. Go home, said Naruto. You are the remainder that will be left alive. So go home, he said as he was done talking. He walked straight towards Konoha. Arriving there, the envoys and everyone, they were stunned speechless, the ones that remained to protect the village. As Naruto walked, some of them tried to stop him, but they were blown to pieces. They exploded just from his mere touch. As Naruto kept on walking, all the people that were in safety could feel the tremble going through Konoha. Kushina was in her home. She knew if he got past them, there was no point of running. She was crying silently, tears running down her face. Over inside of her crib, standing on her feet, was none other than Saya. Kushina waited as she saw the door open. As Naruto stepped inside, he stood there looking at her. Don't, she said. She's just a little girl. Do what you want with me, but don't kill her. Naruto looked towards Saya. As he walked forward, Kushina got up. As Naruto backhanded her, she slammed into the wall. He then walked towards Saya, keeping his eyes trained on her. Hi there, he said. As he picked her up, I'm your big brother, he said to her. Saya just tilted her head, seeming confused. It's alright, you don't need to see this. He waved his hand over her and she was gone, sucked away in a swirling vortex. The next moment a large vortex arrived and dumped out everyone. The screaming Menma, the gasping Mito, and the just regaining consciousness Minato. Chains wrapped around all of their throats and pulled them down to the ground one by one. Kushina as well, so they were lined up against each other. Mito was barely conscious, as a fox was trying to heal a giant hole in her stomach. Naruto held his hand out, as a silver mallet was formed. He gripped it tightly, as he twirled it in his hand. He looked down towards all of them. You monster! You won't get away with this, said Minato. Tuh, I already have. How dumb are you, said Naruto. As I told you before, I was going to kill each and every one of you. Menma screamed as he tried to move, but he could not. Kushina seemed to resign to her fate. I'm sorry, son, she said. I'm sorry I was not a good mother. I'm sorry for all that I did to you. Whack! Naruto drove the mallet on her skull, leaving nothing except her body without a head. Minato cursed as he tried to move. Whack! It was Mito next as Minato cursed. Naruto put his feet on Menma's head. Hey, it's too bad you can't see anything. Whack! His head was crushed. Minato was crying by this point as he looked up, realizing that they've lost. The chain pulled him to eye level. I hated all of them, but you, I despised you. I know that everything was your order. What happened to Ami? What happened to Keo? You created me. You're the one that will suffer the most. I hated them because of their affiliation with you and the way they treated me. But you were the one that I wanted to witness this all. Now, said Naruto as he placed his hand over Minato's heart. Minato started to scream. Something was burned into his chest. A strange mark. My power. A portion of it is inside, said Naruto. He then turned towards the wall. You know, since gaining this power, I've been able to open portals. And I realized that I could do much more. In the time that I had, I was able to create this. Just for you, he said. You were always the one I wanted to suffer. I hated them, but I despised you. as Naruto opened a portal. Inside looked like literal hell. That mark, it is also a branding. Once you enter into this realm, it won't allow you to die. Minato was frightened by that. As much as I despised Kushina, Menma and Mito, all I really wanted was just to kill them. From day one. But you, I wanted you to suffer, said Naruto. As he picked Minato up, no, please, don't do this. I'm sorry. Naruto grabbed him by the face. Minato started to scream. When Naruto removed his hand, there was no longer a mouth there. Minato's mouth was gone. He was screaming, but there was no sound. As Naruto tossed him inside, howling and roars could be heard. I created it myself. Your everlasting prison. I hope you like it. Minato tried to rush back, however. The portal closed behind him. Looking down towards the ground, black markings were over Menma and Mito. From the beginning, all the power of the Nine Tails was sucked inside of his body. As Naruto released a breath, he then destroyed the ceiling as he flew up in the sky. He held his left hand out, he held his right hand out. The Sage of Six Paths appeared. So what now, he said. Naruto looked towards him. He made a crossing motion in the sky. Ethereal binding slammed into the Sage and tear him away from this existence. Stay dead already, said Naruto. As he stood where he was, he then started to raise his hand. The sky started to change as it turned blood red. Suddenly, everyone in the world turned their gaze up towards the moon that was on full display, showing Naruto's eyes. However, at that moment, everyone felt something enter their body, gripping them. It then started to pull. It wasn't painful, but chakra was sucked up in the sky from all of them into the moon. As suddenly, something fell from the heaven and dropped right into Naruto's palm. It was a single apple. As Naruto held on to it, every single individual in the world dropped to their knees. Even the people at the rain as well. They lost their quirk, all of it, as Naruto had erased the mutation, so that no one else would be ever born with a quirk. The world was going to be how it was from the beginning, where they would have to be ninjas only. No specialty. No one different. He did it. He finally did it. He said he was going to erase it all. From when he lost KO and Ami. And he did it. Tears were flowing out of his eyes, as he couldn't believe it. He took it all away. He got his revenge. And he took it all away. As Naruto couldn't help but laugh. Time skip. At the hidden rain. The Rinnegan was still very powerful, but all the quirks that was at its disposal were now gone. As Naruto arrived, he seemed to just appear out of nowhere. Mikasa rushed up towards him. You did it, she said, as she looked towards her hand. This is going to take time to get used to, she said to him. Wait, who is this? My little sister, said Naruto. That is when someone else arrived. It was another Naruto. She was confused. I gave majority of my power away. It's inside of him, said Naruto. In the beginning, after I did all of this, I wanted to die. However, now that I'm gonna be staying here with you, I can't just leave the world as it is. He's gonna take control. He's gonna fix the nations. Make sure everyone is equal. Make sure that children don't suffer. Make sure there's no more war and plague. As for me, I want to spend my time with you, he said. Tears were running down her cheek. Yes, she said to him, I'll marry you. As both of them kissed each other. as Naruto was holding on to the sleeping Saya. They separated as they stood, looking towards the powerful Naruto who stood there. He flew into the heavens. As he held his hand out, a bright light washed over the elemental nation. He was like a divine being, making sure they all felt his grace and presence. As he split himself into countless individuals to walk around the elemental nation. To fix it, some will still try to rebel against him, but they will all die. He was omnipotent. Because of the missing link, he could see everyone and everything. He would fix it all. As for Naruto, as he turned towards Mikasa, his arm wrapped around her waist, Nagato and Konan were standing there, watching their daughter and how happy she was. Nagato wanted to fix the world, but it seems someone had already been on it and he achieved it. Well, he was in the process of doing so. It seems like everything was now going to be alright. No longer will children suffer because they're not born special with a quirk. Countless had to die, but in the end, it was necessary. As the years flew by, Naruto and Mikasa had 2 kids. 2 wonderful children, a boy and a girl. They were raised alongside their aunt, Saya Namikaze. Naruto chose to keep the vivid and dangerous past away from Saya and his children. Till this day, Minato was still suffering in that hellscape, unable to die, unable to truly live. He was hunted on a daily basis. It was torture, as Naruto forgot about him. His little minions went around. They combined all the nation. They bridged all the lands together. They were fixing the world. As a year passed, after another, the elemental nation became civilized. Cars, buses, planes. They started to transform. As more time passed, the use for ninjas were quickly going down. There were no more crime to be fixed, no more missions. People started to get actual normal work. Doctors, scientists. It was spreading. Tech workers. As thousands of years passed in the future, the world was now completely different. The nations were no longer there. They were cities. Stories of the past had been erased. There were still some rumors that a benevolent God had fixed a destroyed world and turned it into greatness. And if it wasn't for him, none of them would have been here. Old statues and nations had been crumbled and turned into, well, cannons. Empty, vague places. Eventually, the world crumbled where Minato was. But by then he lost his mind at least a trillion times. The universe evolved, as the Narutos did not die. They were not humans. They spread into the universe after they finished. With the elemental nation, they faced off against a race of Otsukis. With the power of the Ten-Tail and the constant growth in their power, they devoured the planets. They went around and fixed countless planets, healing and keeping everything balanced. Good and evil combined. Everything was balanced. The world was different. And throughout it all, the dream of one young boy who was neglected finally came through. And yeah, it's over. Well, this story anyways. On a distant unknown planet, 2 figures stood against one another. Hey there guys, it's me. I'm known as the teller. I'm the one now telling the story. Look over there. A man was standing there. He had creamy skin. He had white hair. His eyes were 2 golden orbs. He was dressed in a black shirt, long sleeve, with white markings running through it, and black pants, with a Hayori on his back. His feet was not wearing any footwear, as he liked to be in touch with the earth. Across from him was a powerful being that has been going around, terrorizing countless civilizations and taking countless Narutos. It was Mage Naruto. However, he was different. His body was no longer normal. It was like a vast universe. At least it looked that way. He didn't even have eyes. Wondering why Mage Naruto looked this way, it's quite simple. All the other Narutos funneled their power into him. All the godly Narutos that he took. Standing there was Anime King. It's finally time that him and Anime King fought. It's been a very long time. This is going to decide the future of everything. If Mage Naruto win this battle, all of the Anime King channels would be destroyed. If Anime King win, he will finally stop Mage Naruto. As the two fighters were on this desolate planet, ready to throw down with one another, Anime King cracked his neck as he looked around. Well, we've waited long enough, haven't we? Yes, you're right, Mage Naruto said. His voice was so hollowed. He would finally crush Anime King once and for all. Anime King smiled at him. As the both of them started to walk forward, this will be the fight that decides everything. Their walking turned into a sprint. As they shot at each other at speeds that was far beyond anything. The whole universe was quaking as they fought. However, guys, I'm gonna be stopping this right here. The fate of these channels will be decided at the end of the next What If. The fate of the universe and the fate of all the channels will be decided. The fight between Mage Naruto and Anime King will commence, and the winner will take all. Let's just hope Anime King win, otherwise every channel will be deleted. Well, I'm the teller, and I'm out for now. See you guys soon. Peace.